Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 8th of January. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Chris Jack. How are we doing, Chris? Good weekend?
Not too bad, not bad. A weekend without Rangers, unfortunately. So no game for us to go and see. But I was out at Ibrox for a bit of lunch yesterday. I took the family along. So still got my to get my Rangers fix for the weekend, which was nice.
Super. How was the food? Was it good?
Very, very nice as always. Maybe in the Blue Sky Lounge a few times now. Food and service excellent, and also the view makes it as well. So nice to get along. I said the kids spent a bit of their grandparents' money in the club shop as well. So saved me having to open my wallet, which was always good.
Yeah, absolutely magic. I was in Luton of all places yesterday for the FA Cup tie between Luton Town and Bolton, Kenilworth Road. That was an experience. Cannot believe that is a Premier League ground, but love those old grounds. They're few and far between now, a lot of them getting demolished. But I was doing that yesterday, which was fair play to Bolton, getting a draw and a replay in that game. Only two teams have managed to keep Luton at bay this season, Tottenham and Bolton. So that's a feather in the cap, so good result for them. But we're here to talk all things Rangers. Before we do that, folks, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, the MPH Group. If you're looking for some home improvements or even a new boiler, then these are the guys to call. The all-important links are in the description below. Remember, every service you opt in for automatically enters you into the draw for a 7-night stay over at the 5-star resort in Cancun in Mexico. So do go and check them out if that is something you're thinking of. And before we talk Rangers as well, our thoughts and prayers here at the Rangers Review head out to Dapo Mebude at this moment in time, the former Rangers youngster. He was involved in a car crash over the weekend in Belgium. He currently plays for KV Oostende, the former club of Fashion Sakala. The 22-year-old was rushed to hospital. There was an update. His condition was said to be critical. But a short statement yesterday by the Belgian club said Dapo Mebude underwent successful surgery after his accident. Tomorrow we'll get more information about the situation. We thank the medical staff of AZ Bruges for the good care. We think of Dapo and his family and wish them strength and recovery. So we just echo that. Lucky enough to speak to Dapo when he was at Watford for the Rangers Review. We had him on the video, and some of you might have seen that. He's a cracking lad, and I'm sure you echo that, Chris. Didn't work for him at Ibrox, but he's a cracking young lad, and hopefully he gets back to a good bill of health.
That's also the most important thing, though. Football is put into huge perspective in times like this. He's also someone who is a really a talented young player. It was a really interesting move for him to go out there. As you said, didn't quite click for him at Ibrox. Also, Rangers they didn't really get the chances and didn't really make the breakthrough here. But it's a good career since then. It's an interesting move to go out the continent, and fair play to him for trying it. As I say, that all goes into huge perspective now. The most important thing is him getting back to full health, hopefully, and we'll also wait and see what the club say later on. So fingers crossed it's not as serious as it sounds, and that he can start to go on that road to recovery, and then obviously what will be in football terms, but that's also secondary right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So get well soon, Dapo. We're all thinking of you. Right, of course, we're in the January transfer window. Before we talk transfers, though, Chris, you've got two brilliant pieces on the website. I'd urge you to check them out, folks. The links are in the description below. The first dropped over the weekend, yesterday, in fact. You've spoken to someone close to Stefan van der Heyden, who worked with the Belgian over there at the wonderfully named Kerala Blasters in India. Really insightful piece, Chris. He's the one appointment that Philippe Clement, in terms of the backroom staff, that he made. Very insightful bit of insight into Clement's number two.
I think it's interesting the fact that van der Heyden is the only man that Clement has brought in. Like, you see management teams kind of go together these days. Clement has not brought a couple of staff that he's worked with at previous clubs, and van der Heyden, having spent a lot of time, or spent a wee bit of time, out in India. He's been at the Jordan national side. He's been at Vardar in Macedonia. He's racked up the experiences. He's racked up the stops. So it's really good to catch up, as you mentioned, the wonderfully named Kerala Blasters. Ivan Vukimanovic is the coach over there. I had a really good chat with him over an afternoon, and I think there's a lot of really insightful bits in that, just about the way that Stefan works, the kind of mentality that he brings to the club, the kind of character that he brings to the dressing room. I know the manager spoke, I think it was in Seville actually. Rangers confirmed the backroom team before that, and he spoke about the dynamic that he's got, and the way that Alec Ray fitted in, the way that Brian Gilmore fits in, the way Stevie Smith has fitted in. Also, Colin Stewart has come over from the Michael Beale era. And I think it would have been the easy thing for Clement to rip all that out, say thanks for your efforts over those 2 games. I'm going to go and bring my guys in, but he clearly feels that there's something clicking within that squad and in terms of that staff. And I think Van der Heyden has really added to that. He's not someone who we've heard a lot from so far. I think from what Ivan was saying in that piece, you really get a sense of the work ethic and the mentality and the standards, and you can see how Stephen and the manager really can fit in together. And the way that Ivan spoke about him, the way that his former players still speak about him, still keep in touch with him. He's clearly a man who doesn't always stay in places for a long time, but clearly makes a big impact whenever he does rock up at a club. So hopefully he's at Rangers for a bit longer than he was out in India. He seemed to end his time there in somewhat acrimonious circumstances. I think there's a contractual wrangle over wages and bonuses, and it didn't quite end the way that he wanted. But I think the relationship between him and the manager certainly seems to be clicking so far. So hopefully people enjoy the interview, and I say thanks to Ivan for his time and going through what makes Stephen Van der Heyden almost the ideal assistant manager.
Yeah, he certainly loves his travelling. I've seen him posting a few images of he was in the Faroe Islands visiting his son, which is a cracking place, incidentally. Been there a couple of times. And he does like to jet set. Does the Rangers assistant. And another brilliant piece on the website this morning, Chris, on Abdallah Sima. As we all know, we hope Senegal have an absolute howler in the African Cup of Nations, so we get Abdallah back as soon as possible. Incidentally, they kick off their campaign against Gambia next Monday before taking on Cameroon a week on Friday, and they finish off their group stage campaign with a match against Guinea on the 23rd of January. But you spoke to some journalists that cover African football in great detail, Chris. Big things expected of Abdallah at this tournament?
Unfortunately, I came away from all 3 of those interviews somewhat deflated. I was hoping they were all going to tell me that Senegal were going to have an absolute shocker of a tournament, but no, they're clearly also going into the tournament as defending champions. But I think even if that wasn't the case, they would be one of the favourites for it. Also, Egypt naturally going to be right up there given the squad they've got. We all know how impressive Morocco were during the World Cup, so they're clearly going to be in the running for it as well. But I think Senegal certainly fancy their chances. I was interested in a number of the people that I spoke to for that piece. It was about this great golden generation that they've got, like Koulibaly, like Mane, obviously as the main one, and it's this transition from old to new. This may well be the last AFCON that this group have. Maybe it'll be the last AFCON that a number of these players play in. But Sima has now timed his run perfectly, and he's mostly been in great form for Rangers. He's won his place in the squad on merit. I don't think he's going to be a guaranteed starter. Certainly not in the first couple of games. But again, the guys I spoke to for that piece all mentioned the fact he can have an impact, one off the bench, and if he does, he can then have an impact as part of the starting squad, because there are places there to be won. There's a lot of competition in that forward area, but Sima is there on merit. He's there in arguably the form of his life. And again, it was out in Seville where he was actually asked about that possibility of playing at the AFCON, and he also spoke a bit about how big a dream it would be to then 3-4 weeks later to actually be in this position. It's obviously a huge moment for him. The manager was somewhat disappointed, obviously, that he got the call up. Now he joked about it a couple of weeks ago, saying that it was a bad question and he was unhappy about it. But he will know just how big a moment it is for Sima. I think it's great recognition for Rangers as a club and a team as well. It's always nice to see players being able to go and play at a higher level, to go and represent their countries, and it's a huge tournament, big expectation on Senegal to go and try and defend their trophy. So hopefully they don't. Hopefully they're heading home after the group stages and we can get Abdallah back. But I think he's probably there for the long haul, unfortunately. And if he is, obviously fingers crossed, it goes well for him, but not too well for him that somebody else fancies buying him in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a question that came in, incidentally, just off the back of that. Hugo Bear says, are we paying for Sima's wages while he is away? I understand that is the case, buddy. The reason I say that is, as I mentioned, I covered Bolton as well, and Carlos Mendes Gomez is away with Guinea-Bissau for the tournament, and the manager, Ian Evatt, said during the week that the club will be paying his wages. So I'd imagine that will be the case for all clubs. So not ideal, I've got to say, because he is unavailable. It will be interesting to see where who will fill that void as long as Abdallah is away with Senegal. I think Fabio Silva certainly in with a shout there, possibly one or two others. Perhaps Rangers will look to strengthen in that department in the January transfer window, which leads us on to the transfer window. Chris, lots of points coming in, wanting a bit of news and who could potentially be coming in to Ibrox. First of all, Maka with a point here. He says, morning, guys. Is a Josh Doig deal a non-starter? Great piece, Chris. A brilliant read. Thank you very much for your kind words. Josh Doig, I've seen this mooted over the last week or so, Chris, because it appears, according to reports in Italy, that Ridvan Yilmaz is edging closer to a move to Verona. Now, Doig is a man in demand himself. There was claims that Torino were looking to sign the former Hibs left back. There's been a few reports suggesting that Rangers might fancy him if Ridvan was to move on. What's the latest with all this? Will Rangers be looking for a new left back this window, do you think?
I think they will be. It looks like, as you mentioned there, Derek, it looks like Ridvan is heading for the exit door. Those reports in Italy carry a fair bit of weight. Rangers keeping their cards very close at their chest during this window, unfortunately for us. Not saying very much on ins or outs. But there's also two sides to every story, and anything that doesn't come from this end, there's every chance it will come from the other end, and we can then chase it up, and we can then do our work on it from that end. Those reports from Italy over the weekend have certainly not been knocked down. And I think if you're Ridvan, it makes sense. As we said last week, it is somewhat ironic that he goes and puts in arguably one of the best performances of his Rangers career, and then within a week or so potentially he's heading out the door. But I don't think overall it's been a move that's worked out. He's also had his injuries issues to contend with. He's never really been able to dislodge Barisic. He's never looked like being able to put together the run of games, and even when he has played, I remain to be convinced that he's a huge upgrade on Bonner and a huge upgrade on what we've seen. So I think if they can get a decent fee in for Ridvan, I think a lot of it comes down to the fee. If you go and sell him for £1 million, it's a bit of a slap in the face. If you can get most of what you paid for him, that 3.5 or so, if you can get most of that back, then I think it makes a lot of sense for Rangers. So it's one on my to-do list today to try and chase it up. But I don't think it would be a deal that would upset many fans. I know people are always clinging to the fact that there's a player in there and there's something there, and I think there is a player in there somewhere. Is there a Rangers left back to go and play for the next 3, 4, 5 seasons? Personally, I don't think so. So I think if Rangers can get the right finance in for him, that would then give the manager a bit of money to go and play with. It's perhaps not the area of the squad that we saw or that we assumed the manager would try and move into this window. I think obviously the top end of the pitch is more pressing, but every area of the team can be improved apart from the goalkeeper, I would say. So I think if they can do a bit of business in that area, and Rangers can emerge stronger from the window with a better left back and someone who they really can start to build that position around in the next few years, I think it makes sense to do it. So we may well be seeing the last of Ridvan in a Rangers shirt, and the focus will then also turn to who replaces him and what the future holds for Borna Barisic come the end of the season as well.
Yeah, lots of points come in just off the back of that. Firstly, William says, if Barisic gets a new deal at us, I'm not going back. I doubt that very much, William, but not a fan of Borna is William. But he is free to talk to other clubs, Borna, because he's in the final year of his contract. Wouldn't surprise me, Chris, if he either departs this month or signs a pre-contract with another club. If a deal is not coming from Rangers at this point in time, I've got to say, this is just opinion from me. I would be surprised if he was offered a new deal. I think it's maybe time to move on with regards to that left-back situation. What's your gut feeling on this? Is Borna leaving this month as well?
Could Rangers afford to lose two? I think that's probably more business in the one area of the pitch than I thought they would. They would be doing. I think it's more likely that Ridvan moves on. You use that fee to then bring a left back in who you're thinking to build that position around over the next few years. I think Barisic is as well hanging on until the end of the season. Contract wise, I think like you, Derek, I would be surprised. I think players sometimes just feel as if they're coming towards the end of their natural shelf life. Certainly at clubs like Rangers, it's very, very rare now you get someone doing like a TAF and it's still there after all these seasons.
Yeah.
I think Barisic has been a good servant for the club for the money they paid for him. He's more than we paid that. I always like speaking to him. He's a cracking big guy. He always stops for us in the mix zone. He's always pleased to speak to us. So that certainly gets some brownie points. But in terms of his performances and the consistency, there's obviously huge concerns there. I think Rangers could do better. I think it just feels like Barisic is perhaps coming to the end of his Rangers career.
Yeah, the point that's raised is a good one here. I would be inclined to keep him till the end of the season, given that the fee will be a small one should Rangers look to do business in January. But I think it is an area of the pitch they have to strengthen. Josh Doig, would you be opposed to seeing him pitch up at Ibrox, Chris, if that was to be the case? I know that Rangers have failed in a loan bid for Owen Beck from Liverpool, has went back to Anfield because they have a few injury issues there. But Josh Doig, for you, are you a fan?
Beck would have been an interesting one. He was one of the few Dundee players that really stood out in the matches that I've seen this season. He's obviously the situation at Anfield just with their left back injury crisis, that's potentially opened the door for him. So I think that's early on last week that move was reported from down south. So that would have been an interesting one. Doig is a player that I liked at Hibs. I've not seen too much of him in terms of how he's playing out in Serie A. So I'd be wrong to say he's a huge improvement on what we've got. I've just not seen enough of him. But every time we do see wee clips of him and reports come back, he's certainly gone out there and seems to have done well. He ticks a box in terms of being Scottish, or also handy for the European squad as well. But one of these guys who you do wonder, did Rangers miss the boat on him 2-3 seasons ago, like Shankland at the time, like Lewis Ferguson at the time. I think there's a real every time one of these guys like Doig or like Ferguson goes and does well, it just puts a bit of spotlight on Rangers. Now you should be signing the best of the Premiership as well. Not every signing has to be from somewhere exotic. Not every signing has to be a big money deal from somewhere. Sometimes it's just shrewd business to pick up the best of what you're playing against. The likes of Glenn Kamara, so Rangers did well out of that one. There's no shame in going and signing players from other Premiership teams if you think they're going to be good enough. Not everyone is, of course. You get someone like Scott Wright, for example, who again has been a good servant, has done a job, has played in some huge games and some huge occasions for the club, has never really nailed down that spot. I think someone like Doig potentially would have done, Ferguson potentially would have done, but I think Doig certainly is an interesting one, and I think the feeling amongst the fans seems to be fairly encouraging towards him as well. But as I mentioned earlier on, I see Rangers keeping the cards very close to their chest on all business this month. So we'll endeavour to try and find out what's happening, certainly in that left back position, and as we've spoken about, certainly further up up the pitch as well. I still like to see another striker come in, and certainly someone to play wider on the right hand side as well.
Yeah, Walter was great at that, incidentally, buying players to do a job. Maybe not Hollywood names, shall we say, or star names, but they came in and did a cracking job for Rangers. So, yeah, certainly no shame in that. Let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in. First of all, I love this from Billy. He says, good evening, guys, from the South China Sea, heading up to Kuala Lumpur on a wee retirement cruise. Met loads of bears on board. Absolutely fantastic stuff, Billy. It's amazing. Whatever part of the world you're from, far-flung places, you still manage to meet Rangers supporters. So superb stuff. Hopefully you're enjoying your cruise. Keith Cowie with the point. Morning, lads. Is it today that the players travel to Spain? It says, is it today, Chris? I know that Joshua heads out for us on Wednesday. Is it today the players head? Sometime this week, I know that.
Yes, Rangers are there for the whole week. Josh is only getting 4 nights out of the budget rather than the full 7. But he's got some real interesting plans lined up for the end of the week. So certainly keep an eye on the YouTube channel. Certainly keep an eye on the website. Josh will certainly have us covered, and he'll also be at the game on Saturday afternoon as well. So plenty to come from that trip.
Yeah, not jealous whatsoever. Right, let's get to some of the more pressing points that are coming in just on players that are in the building at this moment in time. Bob says, any update on Lovelace, Derek and Chris? We know he posted on his Instagram probably a couple of weeks ago now, saying that he's back on the grass. So I think he'll be away to Spain, I'd imagine, Chris. I wouldn't be hanging my hat on him being the answer up top, but he's just a young lad, 17 now, I think he is. But it'll be good to see him coming back and providing an option to Philip Clement. I thought he looked bright at St Mirren for 25, 30 minutes when he was on there. He set up the goal pretty much for the penalty that was awarded when he was playing over on that right-hand side. But I want to see more of this boy.
His injury has just arrived at the worst possible time for him. He must just be cursing his luck, especially when he then sees Ross McCausland getting his chance. They both came into the first team fold around about the same time. McCausland has kicked on. He's gone on and had a remarkable few months in terms of Rangers, in terms of Northern Ireland. He's now very much part of the Rangers squad. Lovelace has had a really difficult few weeks, also just working his way back from that injury, and that's sometimes just the way of it for young players. It is sometimes just about being in the right place at the right time. When your chance comes along, you have to make the most of it. Lovelace looked primed to do that in that one game, and then after that, change of manager, clean slate for everyone, as Clement said on day one, and it could have been that this could have been his Ross McCausland style time. Unfortunately, it's not happened for him. So hopefully he can get back to full fitness soon. And hopefully we can still see something from him in the second half of the season. It's going to be difficult, obviously, because the manager will, we think, strengthen in that forward area once again. But he's still obviously a young player. He's got a lot of time in the game. He's got a lot of learning to do. But from what we have seen of him, he's certainly a talented boy. And fingers crossed, Rangers do see the best of him in the months and the years to come.
Yes, absolutely. And the point came in as well that we've seen over the weekend. Danilo posting, as Ross Nielsen says, notice Danilo's Insta post yesterday, working on his knee on the treatment table. It looks like he'll be out for a long time. That's what I gathered from that, Chris. I'm not expecting to see him anytime soon. I've pretty much ruled him out until the end of the season. It looks like a serious injury. It was innocuous in a way, but Philip Clement was not happy. Remember, he picked it up at Tynecastle, a tackle there against Hearts in that 1-0 win. Yeah, I'm ruling him out until the end of the season, which again is a big blow.
It's a huge blow, because how many times in the first few months of the season did we speak about the lack of goals and lack of quality in the final third? Danilo looked like being that guy. I know he missed his fair share of chances in some of the games that he played, but there was enough in there to think, this guy, he may just justify the fee, he may just justify the hype. And then picks up again. You talk about timing, absolutely terrible from his perspective and from Rangers' perspective. It's left us really short in the last couple of weeks. We've managed to get to the break, but as you say, Derek, I think we're still a long way from seeing Danilo back in action. If you then spend that long out, even once you're physically fit, it's then conditioning, it's then sharpness, it's how big a part are you actually going to be able to play in the final weeks of the season. If you can come back for the last 4-6 weeks or so and be in the squad and score a couple of goals during the run-in, it could just be the crucial ones. It could just be the championship clinching ones for Rangers, and that'd be great. But I don't think you can count on him anytime soon. And you almost, it sounds harsh, but you almost just have to forget about him, because he's not going to be here during the first couple of games of the European run. He's going to miss a number of Scottish Cup games. Obviously missed the games in hand that Rangers have got in the Premiership, and a huge run of Premiership matches coming up now. So you really just have to write him off, almost forget about him. But certainly wish him well. And if we can get him back for, say, those last 4-6 weeks or so of the season, hopefully he can still have a part to play, because what we did see in flashes, he looked like a guy that can score goals, and it can be part of a successful Rangers side. But that goal scoring burden is going to have to be shouldered by others over the next couple of months at least.
Yep. Right, let's get to one or two more comments before we wrap up for the day. First of all, big hello to Alan. He says, morning team, Wayne's back at school, coffee and Rangers review, normality returning. Absolutely superb, Alan. Thank you very much for tuning in on this Monday morning. And then Day in the Life sums it up. He says, we need a goal, poach your bottom line, lads. Absolutely, buddy. And let's hope Rangers bring one in pronto. There was a comment coming, another player that has been linked, another name. There's been so many linked with the club, is Emmanuel Dennis. Chris, I've seen him linked, the former Watford man. He's at Nottingham Forest. He's currently on loan, I believe, at Istanbul, Başakşehir at this moment in time. A player that's played in Bruges. Sure, he would have played under Philippe Clement during his time there, so he knows all about him. Can't say I've followed his career closely recently, but he's another player that sort of would fit the bill. He's an attacker, forward, Nigerian, 26 years of age. One of a number of players, I imagine, that will be linked. Do you know much about Emmanuel Dennis, Chris?
I don't know much about him personally, but it was checked out last week, and there was a lot of encouragement on that one. So it may well still be a name that's on a list. It may still be someone that Rangers have had a look at, but I don't think there's anything imminent in terms of that one. That's one of the few that we do have a bit more of an update on.
Excellent stuff. Well, there you go, folks. That answers that for all the comments that have been coming in. We will, as Chris says, we will be striving to keep you updated with all the latest transfer news, both incomings and outgoings this month. Hopefully there's one or two incomings to report on. We've got Fabio Silva in the door already. I'd imagine, we've said before, I mean, the team head out to La Manga, Chris, but it's beneficial for Philippe Clement to have as much time working with potential new signings as possible. I know it's difficult. The January transfer window is not easy. Players you do want tend to be either not in favour at their respective clubs, or if they are in favour, you have to pay a premium for them. So it is a very difficult window, isn't it?
It is, but I think if you look back at the business that Rangers did in the window 12 months ago, so Raskin came in, Todd Cantwell came in, both of them were interesting signings at the time, and both of them have had decent enough Rangers careers so far. I think both would admit that there's been failings there, and I'm hoping both would say there's more to come from them. But I think those were interesting bits of business. I think the Fabio Silva one is a really eye-catching deal so far. We spoke about him last week after he signed. There's a lot riding on that one, because it's an area of the pitch that Rangers also needed a bit of strengthening in. And as we've said, I think if they can get another striker in, someone to play wide on the right hand side for a bit of competition, if he can also play on the left for a couple of weeks while Abdallah's away at AFCON, that'd be smashing. And also the left back situation becomes a priority if Ridvan moves on. So I think there will be certainly more business done from Rangers. As you mentioned, Derek, I think the manager would have liked, or will like, to try and at least get them in Spain at some point this week. If you can get someone into, then even if we get half an hour or 20 minutes under their belt during the game on Saturday, that'd be great. Then obviously back in at the start of next week, back in the Copenhagen game, and things then really kick off once again from there. So the January break Rangers have almost been counting down to it over the last couple of weeks. They just had to get there. Obviously, the Old Firm game didn't go as planned, but I think they've done about as well as they could do under manager domestically since he's come in. Really important now that they use this January break to their full advantage. And time will tell what other business they're able to do. And I see once the games start off again, they come thick and fast, and there's plenty at stake over the following weeks.
Well, there sure is, absolutely. Right, folks, that'll do us here. First of all, a big welcome to Disco13, who's become a member of the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for supporting us, Disco, and welcome aboard. There will be, I'd imagine, we may have a Q&A later on today, folks, for the members on the YouTube channel. As Chris mentioned, Joshua is heading out to Spain on Wednesday, so there'll be plenty of content to come your way, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Plenty on the website, as well as we mentioned Chris's two great pieces on there on Stefan van der Heyden and Abdallah Sima, so do go and check them out. There's also the bit of insight into Million Manhoof as well. I spoke to a Vitesse podcaster who goes in great detail about the Rangers linked winger. You can go and check that out on the YouTube channel also. Right, enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.